While I really like skateboarding and skateboarding games, I suck at both of these things. Now, that doesn't stop me from trying or from making an ass out of myself. I just love going out in public and getting laughed at while I slam my chin off of the pavement, and when I found out that Tony Hawk games were being made for the Game Boy Advance, I jumped on the chance to land flat on my face once again. This is Tony Hawk's Underground for the Game Boy Advance. The premise of this version of Tony Hawk's Underground is pretty similar to the console game. You create your own character, and then you have to unlock different territories and meet new people as you increase your stats and become a better skater. The character creation is similar to some of the past games in the series, when you pick clothes, shoes, and skin tones. However, the difference is that there's actually a sizable starting area in the console version. The Game Boy Advance gives you a tiny town to begin skating in, and most of it is already blocked off. While the different areas are small, they are varied from each other enough that it doesn't become boring. In addition to the story mode, there is also a free skate mode that feels almost exactly the same. The only difference is that you don't have any challenges in this, so you're, well, free to do whatever you want. And yes, for me, that means usually landing flat on my face. The controls in Tony Hawk's Underground are surprisingly good for what is offered in terms of real estate on the Game Boy Advance. Always are done with B, grinding with A, grabs with R, and flips with L. It's simple, and it works pretty well. Now, while the controls are very smooth and responsive, the game itself is really hard. Bouncing into walls is a regular occurrence, and you'll get used to falling off of a rail in the middle of a grind. Wider areas do make the difficulty slightly lower, but the small areas that make up the early levels can really start to frustrate you. Visuals in Tony Hawk's Underground are a pretty mixed bag. Characters look terrible, almost like that missing number in Pokemon with the number of pixels they have. Blood also looks really fake, most likely not to push up the ESRB rating of the game. However, backgrounds and environments are some of the best on the Game Boy Advance. In addition, movements and character animations look really smooth, and there is almost no delay from button press to trick. Audio in Tony Hawk's Underground is a pretty big disappointment. This isn't because it's bad, it isn't, but Tony Hawk games are famous for having an awesome punk and ska soundtrack, while this game gives us some pretty generic songs. I don't care if the game would cost more to buy, I want Goldfinger and Less Than Jake. Oh, and no effects. And Real Big Fish. Tony Hawk's Underground isn't a bad sport game, but it just doesn't stand out from the pack like the earlier console games do. The free roaming elements work fairly well, but at its core, Tony Hawk games should still be about skateboarding. While more recent Tony Hawk games may make you want to get a game like this, it might be best just to stick to the console games.